Don't miss out on the Friday football feast. Buffalo Wild Wings, Apple Valley. Join PA in charge as they get you set for the showdown with the Seahawks on Sunday. Enjoy great food, drinks, and to win great prizes. Doors open at 8. Full details, KFAN.com. Give her calendar.
It's a Monday football feast here at 1600 Utica Avenue. Vikes, Bears battle it out tonight, 7 p.m. kickoff. And to kick off the 11 o'clock hour, we have my man Tom Schreier of ZoneCoverage.com. He covers the Vikings. He covers the Wolves, the Twins, the Wild. He does Billy Blank, Tybo style workout videos on the side. I think he's got a hip-hop mixtape dropping soon. He does it all. Tom Schreier. I don't think we've ever had a chance to actually talk to you about Vikings, though, when we have you on the air.
No, it's been a lot of Twins, which is weird given like this time of year, right? They seem the least relevant. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I've actually come on and talk about the Vikings. I have covered them, been on the road a little bit for a team that was projected to win, 6.5 games?
I know.
It's been a crazy season.
Crazy is that? Me and Saucy opened up the show talking about it. They clinched last night thanks to the Packers, which you don't often get to say thanks to the Packers.
You're welcome.
Boo! But they did clinch a playoff spot last night. And I had to harken back to preseason where they were projected to finish fourth in the NFC North and be one of the top 10 picks in the NFL this season.
Well, and I'm trying to think. There was the short time window when they went and got Cashman, Van Ginkel. I'm trying to remember the other guy, but this is after Cousins. They had the cap space, and it's just we all overlooked that, right? I think Aaron Jones was exciting because
was it Murphy?
No,
traded for Grenard.
Yeah, Grenard, which is the big one, actually, the big contract. So we kind of knew
your Vikings mind over here.
But I was saying, ironically, I think everyone is excited about Aaron Jones, literally because they stole him from the Packers, right? The spite pickup. Grenard, you saw, is kind of to replace Danielle Hunter. But I think what we've learned with Flores, and we should have known all along, this guy is A, he's a genius. B, he builds a defense around his players. He knows exactly what he wants, right? And that's why Jalen Redmond can come in. They grab this guy, Davis, from the practice squad from the Packers. He comes in immediately, and I think they just have traits that he needs in that defense. And we see when one guy goes out, Cashman goes out, all of a sudden teams attack the middle of the field.
Right.
Pace goes out immediately. They start running on him. So we should have known that was a bigger day. And I think this is I think it was Aaron Jones saying he thinks that O'Connell is clairvoyant because he's telling them everyone's going to count us out, nothing, whatever. And here's the thing. How do you blame the Vegas odds makers? It's Sam Darnold under center.
Right.
They probably don't know the defense as well, obviously, as Flores. You have a really, really good division. Like the Packers are a really good team. We were talking off air here about the Bears. The Bears should have a better record, to be honest with you. They just should have executed better.
They were 4-2. Well, you reminded me that I totally forgot before the 7-game losing streak. They were 4-2.
Granted, 4-2 against, I think, some bad teams. But yes, they were 4-2. We saw the winnable games. This is why Eberflus is gone. And then Detroit, we knew how good Detroit was going to be, right? So I understand why Vegas ended up on that number. It's not like anyone here was super excited. There are probably a handful of people, right, whoever's seats who are waving around saying, hey, I knew the Vikings were going to be good. But I think what we learned about O'Connell's, I think, with Cousins, we knew he can maximize him, right? Could he just take a Darnold, a guy with tools? We see him moving around the pocket, the arm strength. Can he take Darnold and turn him into a guy? Darnold's about to cash, I think, $135 million to $160 million check for 4 years, right? I mean, and obviously you see Jones on the sideline, going, hey, I can do the same thing, right? I'm talking the quarterback here from the Giants. And I think, that is such a valuable trait. I mean, it's obvious because it's the quarterback and it's the most important position, but the fact that regardless of where they go, if they stick with the Darnold, if they, J.J. McCarthy, you have to believe he can develop J.J. McCarthy, that he could take Daniel Jones and play him for the first part of the season. And that was the learn there. So we learned can develop quarterbacks, doesn't matter who it is, just needs traits. And then that Flores really knows defense.
I like this clairvoyant, Kevin O. Clairvoyant, Kevin O. Miss Cleo. I mean, I like this clairvoyant thing. Might need to look into that a little bit more. Maybe have him do a tarot reading for me or something. I got some stuff that I need to know. Going over to the other side of the ball on the other team, I should say, going back to the preseason kind of prognostications, everybody thought the Bears were going to be on this accelerated schedule. And like we talked about through the first 6 games, it looked like so far so good. And then obviously they've been on a 7-game losing streak, a really weird 7-game losing streak where I think like 6 of their losses have been by 6 points or less. Caleb Williams isn't even turning the ball over necessarily. So how far away do you think the Chicago Bears truly are from being the team that they thought they were going to be in the preseason.
Probably a good coach. And I think part of the thing with Eberflus is I always tell people he's a good defensive coordinator. Like, he'll get a premier job in that position. I just, I think back to watching Hard Knocks, and I don't know how many people watch this, but I was just like, that's not the guy you want overlooking Caleb Williams. Like, you want the Kevin O'Connell type. I think of Cliff Kingsbury, who coached him in college, right? Someone who knows the quarterback position, knows offense, really maximizes those one-on-one meetings with Caleb Williams. I think part of it is, listen, he's not turning it over, but they do tell quarterbacks, you have to turn it over sometimes. Now, you don't want
take some risks.
Yeah, take some risks. Now, you don't want a Darnold game against Jacksonville, right? He had to clean that up.
Right.
But my guess is O'Connell's telling him, like, it's fine if you throw an interception down the field. The defense can handle that, and we need you throwing. It's a risky throw to Jefferson. Like, Jefferson even said, he's like, I've been that wide open since high school. If that guy was standing up, it's probably a contested pass, right? And some of these, I don't know how Addison grabs some of these balls. His answer's always, I just look at the ball. And I'm like, well, I assume that's what you're looking at. But like, I don't know how he kind of contorts his body to grab some of these 50-50 balls. He obviously has talented guys, but he's willing to take that risk downfield. That does mean occasionally, and no one wants to see the Jacksonville game again, especially now that we have high leverage games late in the season.
Right.
But, he has to take risks like that. And I think with Williams, they have to kind of marry this idea that, hey, you can extend the play. Even Flores says, listen, once the guy has the ball for more than 3 seconds, it's really hard to cover all over the field. He needs to marry, like, hey, you're using your legs to extend plays. This is what Rodgers did when he was great. And then there's a guy open downfield, throw it, take a risk. It's okay if you throw an interception. There are good and bad interceptions, right? So I think there's some coaching the quarterback that's needed. And it is a waste on the Bears side of a really, really good defense, right?
Yeah.
Of a team that is really, really skilled. So I think, you mentioned all these close games that they lost. Eberflus in some ways lost or got fired because of the standard he set. Now, it's, again, I think you just need a different type of coach for Williams, but it's
probably
also
shouldn't have came into the season at all.
Yeah, probably not. But it's also, like, I think of that Lions game, you're going to see it as, well, there's a bad loss. I don't know how they were in that. I was watching, and granted, you're kind of watching that with, like, turkey brain, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, I was watching that going, like, this game was over, like, 100 years ago. And then, how did it come down to, he just had to call a timeout, gather his young quarterback, go, here's what you need to do. Throw it down the field, spike the ball, and then throw it in the end zone.
So ridiculous.
And having said that, that's because it was close, right? And it makes it even more frustrating that you see the talent on it. So I will say this, you have to take the Bears seriously. The Vikings, I think, are 7-point favorites here. They have to win this game because they have to keep this momentum, try to get that number 1 seed, right? Which is now they control their own destiny. But I think they have to take them seriously, but I really believe this is a smoke 'em game. This is what should have been in Soldier Field. I know those games on the road, especially in Soldier, are weird. They were up big. They gave up 17 points in the third quarter.
Yeah.
In that last game.
That never happens.
Put them away. Do what you did against Atlanta, because that was actually new. That's something that didn't happen until, I think it was week 3 against Houston or something was the last blowout.
Yeah.
Go blow them out. Don't give them any hope, because the Bears come in here thinking they can win. They did last year. I think they kind of shut down Dobbs, kind of shut off that faucet. And then, here, I think they're going to go, hey, we still have a defense. There's guys with stuff to prove. And Caleb Williams is still dangerous. So just don't give them any hope. This is a game where go snuff them out early.
I do have some breaking news that will affect the Vikings potentially. This just hot off the press, literally like 2 minutes ago. Rap sheet. Lions running back David Montgomery suffered a torn MCL. He somehow finished the game with a torn MCL.
That's absurd.
He's having more tests to figure out the severity and the next steps. So another injury blow to the team the Vikings are chasing right now.
I will say this. Some of this is injury luck, right? But Detroit and San Francisco, 2 teams I think could be better, and obviously different places in the standings, but could be better, obviously, with better injury luck. There is something about the Vikings. They've kind of shown us in the media. Obviously, we don't sit in the training room, but they say, like, there's certain practices where they'll track a guy and go, hey, this guy's run this many yards at this speed. He needs to not practice as hard because of injury concerns.
I didn't realize it was that, like, next gen.
It's it's Tyler Williams is like the head guy. Mm-hmm. And when you hear O'Connell reference Tyler and Uriah, those are his 2 kind of head trainers, I think. And he brought those guys over from LA. I think it was kind of hey, I need these guys. Injury, we know with Cousins, for example, last year, that season is different. Obviously, if he doesn't blow out his ACL or his Achilles, and that's not something that they can control. But I think there is something to the Vikings being relatively healthy. Even if you think back, and this was a different regime, but that 2017 team, the defense was so good just because they didn't get hurt, right?
Right.
And to the extent you can mitigate injuries, it seems obvious, right, in the NFL. You do well. I think the Vikings are reaping the benefit from this kind of Tyler Uriah, whatever this tracking players and kind of advanced technology or whatever. Even you see Hawkinson come back. He plays actually less than 50% of the snaps in his first 3 games. Then all of a sudden, I think it was when Oliver went out, it jumps to close to 70, right? And so they're monitoring, tracking all this stuff. Justin Jefferson, if he has a big game against Chicago, why is he practicing on Wednesday? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. He's Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. So I think there is something too. Like there's brilliant coaching, and obviously Detroit and San Francisco are really good teams when fully healthy. But I do think the Vikings right now in an 18-game season are benefiting from whatever they're doing behind the scenes with their players.
No, I was actually I've been thinking that over the last couple of weeks, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on anybody on the Lions training staff or anything like that, but we do see this as be a trend for certain teams. Obviously, completely different sport. It was a trend for the Twins for a really long time, and they had to kind of change out those guys and try to see if that was the problem. It's been a trend for the Baltimore Ravens over the last handful of years, and now we're seeing it with the Lions and the Niners. There's got to be something to what you're saying, that some of it is bad luck, but some of it is just who you got in-house and how you're keeping track of these types of things.
I mean, I think there definitely is care for the players. They talk a lot about, hey, they try to get to know you personally. I think there's just this emphasis on player development. O'Connell is a player development guy. He was actually a quarterback's coach, I believe, before, like a private quarterback's coach before he latched on with Cleveland, and that's where he met Kwesi and stuff like that. You think of Flores, again, grabs guys from the XFL and UDFAs and stuff, puts them into prominent roles. It really, to me, I don't think Flores cares much about where you were drafted. He's invested in Dallas Turner, for example, right? But he's not going to play him if there's other guys who are better than him. And we've seen this with the cornerbacks, so he kind of patches that together. So I think, he's a player development guy, and then Matt Daniels, which just goes overlooked because he's the special teams guy, but that's like Metellus comes from there. I bet Ivan Pace started there. He's working with guys knowing that, unfortunately, when he does a good job, that guy moves on and moves off his special teams into a defensive or offensive role. But I just think there's so much emphasis there in the locker room on player development, and part of that is keeping them healthy, right? The more reps you have, the more practice you have, the better off. So again, there's going to be unfortunate situation. J.J. McCarthy, literally, I think the only player in the draft era, first round, to miss the whole season, right?
Yeah.
Not much you can do. I still don't know where he blew out his knee. I still don't know what the hell happened. But again, that might be an injury in college that kind of carried over or whatever. But you would assume he's in good hands here, even with the second surgery. And in general, I just think the proof is in who is playing right now for the Vikings, that they still have a relatively healthy team, and they're going to need one, given that this looks like a tough path. It's you're looking at the Packers, a game in Seattle, Detroit, and then the potential, now they control their own destiny, but the potential that you could be playing on the road in the playoffs. So they need this whole army of players. I do think there is something about the system they have and the medical staff that is keeping them together.
And it's been, speaking of players being healthy, it's been awesome to see Justin Jefferson be healthy all season this year after struggling with his health a little bit last year. Obviously didn't have the greatest game the first time around against Chicago. I think he only had something like 22 yards or something.
Yeah, it was two
like that.
catches for 27 yards.
Yeah, obviously that's not the typical Justin Jefferson that we're used to. How do you expect the Bears to cover Justin Jefferson today?
So I was writing about that because I wonder if they do it again. Now, there's a strong argument that by taking Justin Jefferson out, they lost the game. Jordan Addison goes off, I think 160 some yards. Hawkinson, 114. They have enough weapons where if you concentrate on Jefferson, and he has said this, the teams defend him differently, right? The Jacksonville goes from one safety to two deep. I was asking him, how does it change with Eberflus going out, the defensive guy? He goes, dude, I don't know, but they're going to do something different anyways. The only reason why you take Justin Jefferson out, I know he's the biggest threat, but again, Addison, viable threat, Hawkinson, viable threat, is even Jones in the running game.
And all three of those last names you just named torched the Bears the first time around.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the only reason why you take him out is to mess with Justin Jefferson. See how, because here's the thing, the one qualifier he has is, listen, he chases his boy, right? And he wants to beat him out. Two LSU guys, I think friendly competition, but a very serious competition. And Justin Jefferson wants to be the best receiver. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. He wants to be seen as the best ever. He knows that's in yardage. Now, everyone would say this, although they don't count it. If you have a pass interference for 45 yards, that should almost be 45 yards to your name, right? That he drove a penalty down the field. Some guys just lay him up. The last game in Chicago, they just tackled him in the end zone. I don't know. It's NFL blitz. I don't know what that is, but I think, he wants the yardage. And by the way, they can manufacture yards. You even go back to, it's not just Jefferson. O'Connell did this in the free three era, right? Addison tweeted this out. Immediately, he just gets some plays in the script, right? And makes him happy. So I think the only reason why you do that is to get him upset on the sideline. Having said that, if Chicago does that, they're just seeding the game. Addison will go off again. Hawkinson will go off again. Even Darnold will move the ball around. It's not just those guys. So I think Oliver might have a big game. So I think the only reason why they do that is just to kind of mess with the mentality of the team. Having said that, Justin Jefferson can break double and triple teams. I think they'll get him open.
Yeah. I mean, he's Justin Jefferson. And last week he was phenomenal. Jordan Addison was phenomenal. I mean, everyone was eating last week. It was like Thanksgiving part 2. Unfortunately, defenses have been eating a little bit on the ground against this Vikings, or offenses, I should say, against this Vikings defense. The Falcons rushed for over 155 yards last week in the win against Atlanta, and the Cardinals rushed for 100 yards the week before. Is that giving you cause to pause? Is that more on the Ivan Pace injury, or do you think that's a trend? I mean, obviously the Vikings still, fourth in the NFL in rush defense. I don't think it's a reason to panic, but does that give you a cause to pause a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, although I think you'd rather have teams rack up ground yardage as long as they're not beating you in play action, right?
True.
Eliminate explosives. I think, we were talking about Caleb Williams. Like, he's going to be hesitant to throw downfield if he doesn't see a guy open, and you might create open players, obviously, off of play action. So I think you can limit teams. I think they'd rather kind of contain that. I mean, what they don't like is you have less plays. Obviously, if you have chewing up clock, right? But and there are time of possession issues, and I think of that Arizona game, that first half, they really dominated time of possession. So it's not that it's not a concern. I just don't think you want to give up explosives, get Caleb Williams in rhythm and comfortable early. So if he's running the ball, obviously it kind of takes away from that. The other thing is I think teams were beating him on the flats, and so you had to soften the middle a little bit in order to get guys out wide. Otherwise, literally, like, as soon as there was a rush, they were just dumping the ball off and trying to run up the seams of the field. So I think some of this is just a product of Flores' defense is going to give up something. What it is they're trying to get to the quarterback before they figure out what it is.
Right.
And so it is concerning. I'd be much more concerned for obvious reasons if there was explosives and all of a sudden, hey, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and Caleb Williams. So I think, you're picking your poison a little bit. Having said that, I think it's a reminder that Ivan Pace, as much as he has some shortcomings covering players, and I think it's literally just a size thing, he is really a dynamic player. By the way, an undrafted dynamic player that really makes a meaning on this defense.
Yeah, he's been incredible. Hopefully he can get back in the game soon. I'm judging based off of your comments here that if I ask you a final prediction, you're going to say the Vikings are steamrolling the Bears.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is just go beat them like they did Atlanta. I think that was the best thing. People obviously looked at it from the Kirk Cousins perspective that, hey, thank God they moved off of him and that they didn't give him a big contract coming off the injury. I also think it was in praise of Darnold. I think it's so funny that Darnold was, like, we were asking why he all of a sudden showed emotion, and he's like, well, they're chanting MVP. I can't just sit on the bench, like, staring forward.
Just give him a little presidential wave. No, you got to get fired up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if he's a baseball player, right, you doff your cap or whatever. You can't do that with a helmet. But I think, I like seeing that from Darnold. I think there is something about him being steady. And you think of even that Chicago game. Remember, they almost lost in overtime. He has to have that drive late be perfect, right, to win that game.
Right.
And I think the players always talk about he's just steady, kind of even keeled. I would like to see more of that out of Darnold. And in general, out of these players, right? You think of the excitement when Justin Jefferson finally has a touchdown, right? There's been so many people guarding him. Finally, the guy slips and he gets in the end zone. And I think this should be kind of a euphoric game, right? You're going to have some really, really tough games coming up, even with Seattle. I don't know where you're at with Geno Smith. I don't even know where that team really is at in a weird division. Just lost.
They're a weird team, man. I just don't. Are they even like exceptional at anything? I feel like they just kind of chameleon and find their way to win usually, but they're not exceptional at anything.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a new coach team and a team that had an identity forever, right? Defense, Legion of Boom for a while. Then it was Russell Wilson, right?
Right.
They're going to have to figure out what kind of is the identity my guess is they go back to defense, but what is the identity of that team? A really well coached for a first year team, but a really weird team, probably a winnable game there in Seattle. And I think either way, that's a tough place to play. It's so loud, the diehard fans. And then you have Green Bay and Detroit. Have one more feel good game, right? Because those other ones are not, they're going to feel good at the end if you win, right? But they're not going to feel great. They're going to be grinded out games. And so I just think that's my core prediction here is go do what you did against Atlanta. Show everyone is themselves and especially the fans, right? That they are capable, that they have come to evolve late in the season of not just kind of scraping by, getting by these AFC South teams or whatever. Right. They can go and beat someone. And I think that's really, really important.
So you're saying 50?
Yeah. I was trying to look at like the over. I was thinking like something like 27-10. I know that 27 seems low, right? But I think it's still a good defense, right? And I think what people have to remember that the reason why these teams fray late is because guys start playing for their job, especially if you're not under contract, right? They want to show on tape, hey, I could go join a good team and be in this league next year. The problem is that is not conducive to winning. The reason why the Vikings say they win, obviously, is because, hey, there is a little bit of, I think of the defense is a core part of this. Grenard is not putting up big sack totals, right? Pat Jones sometimes benefits from that. Ivan Pay, whoever it is.
Right.
But he he's the kind of player who doesn't care. He knows the coaches know he's playing well on tape. He knows he's been impacting the game on tape. And I think you just can't have that kind of player on a losing team. They're like, no, I want a sack total. Right? Like that. People look at my stats and I want a sack total. So I think you just have to still be wary of this defense. And having said that, I think defensively the Vikings need to do what they can to obviously snuff out Williams and then just create that margin so that it's not. I still cannot believe it was watching that game. I think that no team had lost. They were up like 10 points with 30 seconds left or something. There was some weird stat like that's never happened in the NFL. And that ball goes off a month's foot. And I was like, guys, and it's a Soldier Field, right? So just don't even tempt fate with that. Got to have this one because the next three, I think, are really, really tough games that are going to matter a lot for the playoffs.
100%, especially after Detroit's loss yesterday. Now the Vikings, like you said, control their own destiny and could be the number 1 overall.
Here's the thing, they've earned it. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I know the preseason prediction, although the Vikings got to 6 wins pretty quick. But like, I think, the core thing was really those 2 losses that you have the loss to Detroit, which is just devastating, right? It's here. You're comparing yourself to one of the best teams in the NFC. And then 5 days later, you have to play, think of how physical that game is, right? You have to play in LA. Now, I would argue that was borderline a home game. Some of these games like Jacksonville, Nashville, stuff, they were all kind of home games.
Every game in LA against the Rams is a home game for the other team.
Yeah, and it's just funny. Even the stadium, it's cool, but it doesn't have the Rams colors because it's shared with the Chargers, right? So it just feels like, kind of like a neutral site field.
Game. Yeah.
You
just got your boys together and played at the park or something.
Yeah. And so I think, that could have been a turning point in the season. They used those 10 days to get right? And I think that to me is so important. So they have I will say this though, it's not a fluke thing. It's not like they're winning in a bad division. It's not like it's a bad NFC. They have earned the right to control their own destiny. It's just don't stumble on this game, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Make it be one of these tough game in Seattle, tough game in Detroit, game against Green Bay. Like that, we understand kind of that you might get a bad result there. Go out and beat Chicago. Feel good. Make this especially on a short week. Make it feel good. Yeah.
Let's smoke these Bears tonight. Monday night football matchup. Vikings Bears kickoff around 7 p.m. You can hear PA and Pete Bursich on the call later tonight. But in the meantime, we got a couple more segments of 9 to noon to go. My man Tom's going to hang out, talk a little Timberwolves, a little Twins, a little this, that, and the lat, to borrow a phrase from my man, the common man. And don't forget, we're closing out the show with the best thing you did in 2024. I want to hear from you. So text in. We already got a bunch of texts about it. We already got some emails about it. Text in, call us 800-320-5326. Shoot us a talk back, however you want to holla at us, because the last segment is all yours. In the meantime, we're talking to Tom Schreier of ZoneCoverage.com about a little Timberwolves action coming up next.
Hey, Rubes, this football season, Bell Bank is giving one KFAN listener each week $1,000 to pay it forward to a charity of their choice. Just head over to KFAN.com, keyword contest to learn more and to enter today. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Ultimate segment of 9 to noon. Max Fuller here filling in for Paul Allen. You'll hear his sweet, suave, debonair voice later on tonight during the boom and every bit after that as the Vikings host the Chicago Bears. We're here with Tom Schreier of ZoneCoverage.com. We just went heavy on the purple, but Tom does it all, so I want to talk a little Timberwolves with them. They handled business last night, took care of the San Antonio Spurs 106-92, and I believe it's something like 6 of their last 7 opponents they've held under 100 points, which again in the modern NBA is just a feat to absolutely to hold your head high with pride on. It seems like they're finding, we talked about identity just a second ago in the last segment. It seems like they're finding their identity again, that the defense is still their calling card. Even after exchanging some of the cards that they got in the deck, defense is still where they're going to butter their bread. And lately, that bread's been looking like a Red Lobster biscuit, Tom Schreier.
I think it's worth pointing out. So the last time, I think it's worth pointing out that the last time they lost, so that was 115-104 before this streak, right? Aside from Golden State, which they gave up 100 114 points, was that 115-104 loss. I think it was 28-6 run that Sacramento went on.
Yeah.
And we just haven't seen that since, right? The run, kind of the devastating run. Jaden McDaniels, they're sticking Jaden McDaniels on Steph Curry and holding him, right?
Right.
And if one team's going to break through against you, it is a team like Golden State, right? It's still well coached, still talented guys.
And that game, did that not feel a little vintage Golden State where it's just an avalanche of offense comes out of nowhere? That just happens when you're playing against Golden State and guys like Steph Curry,
and
right?
I think it's worth pointing out, I think it's hard to play those games so they played on a Friday in Golden State and then turn around and played on a Sunday. I think that the teams know you really well. Kerr can adjust to you. Steph Curry can adjust to you. Certainly no one's going to complain about, 6 and 7. Worth pointing out, though, that's the only time they've given about 100. They also lost. And I think it started with that game against LA. This is the game here on November 29th, the 93-92. It was just gutted out. I mean, that was a weird one where that was actually right. We were talking about the Vikings. This is right after Eberflus did not call the timeout. People were saying Ty Lue kind of Eberflused, right? Because he should have. I don't know what he was doing where he didn't call the timeout there late and kind of get him going. But either way, after that game, a lot of those players were saying exactly what you were saying there, that they've found defense as their identity again. That I think it was Nikhil said they were doing the big little things, right? That there's just this focus on, it's not necessarily a steal or whatever. It could be a rebound in a crucial spot. It could just be a stop. It could be just forcing a guy like Curry to pass when he doesn't want to pass. So I think that's so important because the offense actually has been wonky. I think they've been under 40% shooting in some of these games.
Yeah,
and
it's been middling at best.
And they need to figure that out. That, to be fair, everyone projected before this season because you have Ant, who's ball dominant, right?
Right.
And then you have Randall, who is, I think what Finch likes about him, you have to remember, Finch had coached him in New Orleans. This is in between the Lakers, and then he got the big contract, I think, from New York. Finch essentially kind of fixed Julius Randle, I guess. And a lot of it was that he loves these players who are big and physical. It's like Ant. We always heard him saying, like, when Ant, even when he's shooting from outside, he goes, go to the basket. You're bigger than these guys. You're faster than these guys, right? And I think, Randall's a little bit of a bulldog. I think he's starting to figure out the defensive rotations. From what I've talked to a few people, they say it's something you can study on film, but it's so instinctive. It has to be automatic.
Yeah.
And this is the risk in making that trade. Now, I think Tim Connolly looked at it and goes, hey, with the second apron, we have to kind of commit to one star. I think he'd rather form a different team every year around Ant based on kind of league trends, right?
Right.
That in itself is not wrong. What it did is you made the team worse. I mean, see how Cat's playing, right? And
just to pause this, how about him finally getting respect? Now I'm seeing people. I just saw a clip the other day, and Fat Joe's like, I think Karl Anthony Towns is the best shooting big man of all time. Where was this when he was in Minnesota?
No, and luckily, that, to be fair, people here, now there's people that get frustrated, but people saw what he went through. I mean, with his mother, with his development as a player, who he was as a teammate, that he went, hey, you got Gobert, I got to play the 4, right? Now, I don't know if with Ant and Cat as your stars, if you can have a top 5 defense, and I think you have to have a top 5 defense in the NBA to win a championship, right? But I think that is a good example of he went to a place I didn't know what it would be like with Tibbs, right? I mean, there's some history with them. Gerson Rosas in their front office, right? And then I believe his old agent is in the front office there. So Rose, I'm trying to think of his name, but Leon Rose. So I think. And there's all these CAA guys. So Cat had connections. It's where he's from. I like this for him because it's such a high-profile spot. Yeah. It's the Knicks. It's New York, right?
It's good to see for him,
and I like that he's appreciated there. That's a tough place to garner appreciation.
Especially with his type of, I think a lot of people thought,
goofy.
He's got a goofy personality.
Yes.
I think a lot of people thought that might clash. But it seems like, I mean, and obviously he's from the area, but he's adopted that New York kind of brashness. I mean, he hit that game sealer a week ago, and he's talking trash to people in the crowd, pointing at his jersey and cursing. We didn't get to see that Karl Anthony Towns a whole. I feel like he feels more comfortable being that Karl Anthony Towns.
And it's good. Be comfortable in your home. I mean, that's so important, right? And I think, having said that, the Wolves are going to have to, that is going to be part of the Wolves narrative going forward, that you traded Karl Anthony Towns to New York, where he was wanted, where they had a fit for him, and where he's a star, right? Having said that, I think the team's success, in my mind, is not based on Randall. Randall, it's whether he fits going forward. He's on an expiring contract. They can move on. It's really Tim Connolly kind of calling his own number and going, hey, I can maneuver every year, right? If you give me some cap space, I can lock down Nikhil to a contract. I can extend Nas. And then I can kind of build the perfect Anthony Edwards team.
Almost like B-Flow did with the Vikings defense, just plug and play. Yeah.
Honestly, and it's a little bit, even with that, I think of like Kwesi. And to be fair, these guys all talk, Falvey and Kwesi, all these GMs, like on the fly, think about the Vikings go get Reisner, Akers, like some of these guys, even the Dobbs thing, you know, I'm trying to think of who the Dobbs equivalent would be for the Wolves, but I was thinking like Lance Stevenson back in the day. You know, yeah, I know that's a weird recall, but I forgot about that. But I think it is a little bit just adjust on the fly, whatever you need. And maybe the move is, hey, go get 2 seconds for Randall because you can move up. I know they've tried. Listen, the Dillingham thing, I'm curious where he ends up defensively. I actually think his passing is better than he's projected. I think he rushes shots a little bit, but he does play really fast. He's young, maybe a little nervous out there. Like, I think, and he also has to get the shot off quick because everyone's taller than him. So, but I think like that aggressive move for Dillingham was good. I actually think even like the Leonard Miller one, which is not manifested, but even just try to get a guy with those tools, right?
TSJ as well. I think he's going to be something special later on.
I'm shocked he's not getting more minutes because he's giant and I think he's like 23. It's not like he's, 19 coming out of college. He also just seems mature and kind of calm, right?
Right.
And I think,
and he's just a certified bucket getter, which is something that I think a lot of people thought that's why the Wolves went and got out and got Dillingham is because we need someone that can create their own offense. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. would fit in perfectly. I'm not saying Chris Finch has to go Steve Kerr on the bid and have a 12-man rotation, which is absolutely insane, but he could
go more than 8.
Right, exactly. He could loosen it up a little bit.
I think my thing is, I think he was just trying to keep it together in the first part, right? I think he knew it made this trade early, right before camp. The thing with the NBA is they play so many games that they're not practicing much. Kind of akin to the Vikings where you don't want to burn your guys out in practice. You got all these games coming up during the season. So I think, he was trying to keep it together. If the Wolves, and I'm, kind of looking at the schedule here, if they win the games they're supposed to win and let's say 50-50 on the ones against the good teams, right? They should create enough separation where Finch can maybe lighten up a little bit here and go, I don't need just veterans, right? I need to get TSJ in there. I need to get Dillingham in there. I mean, Minot's a weird player, but Minot's actually shown signs of growth.
He's been awesome, yeah.
And I think, reward the players who go down and excel in Iowa where their minor league team is or who practice well because at some point, and these guys know this, Mike Conley has to hand this off to someone. Like because you're dedicating so much cap to Ant and you're probably going to pay a premium to bring anyone in or extend Nas or bring in Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Like because you have that, also, if Jaden's not playing well, that he essentially just kind of takes up cap space. Now I think he'll play fine, but like these are expensive contracts. They need young players to come in who are cost controlled, and I think at some point, Finch, he has to trust young players, right? At some point, you're not really a rookie anymore if you practice with an NBA team for like 40 games, right? And I think, as we get closer to the halfway mark, it's keeping guys healthy. It's not putting so much stress on one individual player performance every night. It's just the electricity. I think of it. There's a lot of people who love Terrence Shannon. When Dillingham goes to check in, the first game I saw him was the Portland game here that they won, and I know it's weird that we have to distinguish which Portland game it was that they won. But it was a Portland game here that they won, and it was like a late Friday night. I thought people had checked out, gone to the bars, right? And all of a sudden, he steps up to the scorer's table, and there's electricity. And I'm like, dude.
The crowd is already on there. He's got the crowd eating out of his palm already.
They need that.
It's electric.
They need that. You need Anthony Edwards because he can defend, because he's a scorer, because he's a talented player. Anthony Edwards also understands the crowd. He loves it that people love him, and he knows how to get people going, right? The crowd. Right. Dillingham has that quality. He's not going to be Anthony Edwards in terms of driving winning for the Wolves, but that is such an important position. And I think there just is so much more excitement around young players because it is that promise that they could become someone. And so I think that's still important. I don't think they should get away. I understand there's pressure on them to win. I understand that the NBA is becoming a little more like the NFL. It's not quite there, but it's like you can watch a TNT or ESPN game almost every night. Yeah. And it is 2 good teams going at it, right? This is not a league dominated by like 2 to 4 teams. But I think that he is working him in there. And to be fair, if Dillingham's not playing defense or if he can't, the problem is if he can't score, teams will just sag off him and it'll screw with his passing. So, they have to manage him correctly, but I do just get some of these younger guys in there because there's so much excitement and because honestly, you need cost control players as these other guys sign contracts.
100%. And speaking of the national games, I wanted to get into it about the NBA Cup, the ratings, and all that stuff. But we're going to have you on another time, Tom. There's never enough time to talk to you about all your wealth of knowledge. We're closing out the show asking people what's the best thing they did in 2024. What's the best thing you did in 2024?
Yeah, so this is funny. I went out to the London game. I have a friend who lives there. So this is the London Vikings game, and then traveled to Ghent, Spa, and Cologne, Germany. Cologne, Germany was actually a recommendation from Chris Finch, who has coached and played overseas. And so it was during the bye week, obviously a quick vacation. Nearly got lost in Spa. This is where the F1 course is. It's kind of the famous Formula One course.
Okay, yeah.
You have to take 2 trains in and 3 trains out, and this is
my God.
They're all relatively close. I nearly got lost on a remote train station transferring in Belgium. It was everyone spoke French. There was no like electric boards. I was trusting Google would know that there's like a train coming through some remote spot, and then no cell reception. And by the way, I freak out. I'm a very phone dependent person.
Yeah.
And then when I got up there, I don't know why I'm sharing all this, but like when I got up there, I thought it was my hotel was close to the train station. It was 45 minutes uphill. I sweat in a meat freezer. Like I'm kind of sweating now and it's not that warm in here. I showed up and the lady was like, "Hey, what's your car information?" I was like, "I don't have a car." And then she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Probably not," but I was like, I need to get to the track. It's worth it for anyone who's gotten into Formula One just with the popularity of the Netflix show. But it is remote. It is like 15 minutes from a remote town. Even the Uber, or it's not even Uber out there. It's just like a cab. The guy was like, "I don't know where it is." He barely spoke English. I remember he dropped me off. It was like a fence, a hotel, and a gas station. And he goes, "Good luck." And I was like, "Yeah, I hope this is where this thing is." It was super cool. People were racing on Porsches. It was a really cool to actually see it after seeing it on TV, seeing it live. Funny little anecdote, Wolves related. As I was coming back on the train, there was 2 connections. The first connection I had like an hour. One of our guys was night owl, filed a piece at 3 a.m. Shout out to Jonah. And it was 10 a.m. my time. I edited it there, and some guy comes up to me, another traveler. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, how am I going to explain to this guy that I'm editing a piece about one of our guys watched literally every possession, and again, shout out to Jonah for doing this, every possession from Julius Randle in New Orleans when he was with Finch, trying to figure out what he did differently in LA. And I just was like, man, I'm just working it. I'm sure he's like, who's this, like the meanest person ever? But that was what I was doing in the interchange with going back. But yeah, fortunately got in and out safe and sound. Definitely worth seeing. I love travel. And if you're a F1 fan, go see Spa.
Oh, don't get lost before the next time. We need you here on the Fan. We appreciate you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Final segment of 9 to noon. It'll be a shorty because, as I am wanton to do and embracing the spirit of 9 to noon, I have completely messed up the clock. But we're ending it with you, yes, you, the lovely listener, telling me what is the best thing you did in 2024. Chime in if you want to before the end of the show. Final segment around the corner. Well, like I said, I messed up the clock, embracing the true spirit of 9 to noon. I got my man, Yada. I got the common man, Dan Cole. Yeah, waiting in the dugout. Appreciate everybody for chiming in, letting me know the best thing they did in 2024. We got lots of people that got married. Somebody said listening to the Fan, which is awesome. Traveling, all types of stuff. It's my fault. Wish we could have got to it, but I appreciate y'all for listening. Thanks to Ron. Thanks to Meat Sauce. Thanks to Alexis. And thanks to Tom. And thanks to you, the lovely listener, for joining me and hanging out with me today. Vikings, Bears, Monday night, 7 p.m. kickoff. See y'all another time. Peace.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.